So far, we have accomplished creating our container component. We've then declared some initial data based off of our larger data structure. Now, at the moment, we're not using TypeScript to our full advantage, and we're introducing this infamous any keyword. Now, the any keyword, if you spot it in a code base, is not a great thing that we want to see. Ideally, we want to provide type definitions for all of our objects, which means that we get some type safety, and I'll demonstrate this as to why in a moment. Now, the reason that we need to do this, because we want to make sure that we are accessing properties, functions, you name it, things that exist on a particular object or data structure in JavaScript. And this also gives us the benefit of typing our server responses so we can understand what the data structure coming back looks like. And this gives us some really nice completion when it comes to dealing with our project. So, for example, if I press dot here, we have an infinite array of choices. When we come to then add some types for this, we're going to see this .name, .price, because we have created some types for our models. Now, the way that we can do this is if we jump into a separate terminal instance, we can turn to our friend npx, we can then ng generate, and this time we're going to create an interface. We want to create it in our admin folder. For this, I like to use a separate folder called models. And then we're going to create it with a capital D, the word donut. Now add a space here and then add the word model. The easiest way to answer why is to simply hit enter and have a look at what it generates for us. We have our admin and then models. So if we jump in here, the capital D that we supplied denotes the name of the interface. So if we jump into our donut file, we have export interface donut. So this is essentially a blueprint of what our data structure looks like. It doesn't get compiled down to actual JavaScript. It's kind of just a reference check, a safety check that's virtual. And we can import it into all of our different files and use them wherever we are using that particular data structure. And of course, this will make more sense as we continue and start using it if you are new to interfaces. Again, if you want to dive a lot deeper into TypeScript, I also have built out 2 very in-depth courses on the subject here. Now, in our Angular CLI command, we added this word model here. So that essentially means that it's going to get appended to the file name. And this is a practice I like to use because I know that it's simply a model of what our data should in fact look like. Now, if we bring this up side by side, we can jump down into our data structure. So essentially, we want to mimic our data structure in an interface to provide some type safety. So first we have an ID, which is of type string. We have a name, also of type string, an icon of type string. We then have a price of type number. And finally, we have that description of type string. And that is all we need to do. We just declare a footprint of what our data structure looks like and the particular types. If we want to potentially expect 2 different types, we can in fact say that. We could say we're expecting a string or perhaps a number. But this is a bit more advanced TypeScript and we don't really need to worry about it right now with our Angular development. With this in mind, let's save this out and we want to now import this donut interface. We can then add this to our component class and get some nice type safety. So let's jump up and we can say import donut, and you can see that it's already finding it for us. So I can just hit enter. Let's jump back into our models and that donut.model, which means that we can take our donut definition, jump down and replace our any's with the word of donut. So when we hover over this, you can see that we have donut list component with a property of donut, so it's public, which then has a type of donut with a capital. And as I mentioned, we can jump back into our template. Now I can hit dot, and you can see that we now have these properties available. So we have name, price, ID, icon, and description. So these are essentially given to us in any particular order. So let's go ahead and select name, and you can see that we have this icon next to these. So we know that is in fact part of our data structure. If we were to, for instance, spell something incorrectly or make a far less obvious typo, you can see that it says property does not exist on type donut. And I'm sure that throughout your development career, you have made so many mistakes and wasted so many hours in total debugging small things like this. So this is just something that TypeScript really helps us with. So that is how to create your own interface. An interface is a blueprint of what a particular object or data structure or anything we want to type in TypeScript may look like. We can then bind it to a particular property and say this property looks like this, and this property is simply a collection of these things. So when we want to specify an array, we say it's going to be an array of donuts. We use that word just outside of those square brackets. And this is just simple TypeScript syntax that then gives us auto-completion and type definition safety throughout our application. As you can see, we get those types given to us regardless of where we are in our application. So whenever we want to use an interface, we simply import it from our models and declare it alongside a type. So with this in mind, let's keep building out our application. And now that we've got things set up in a container, we've got our data structure, we've got some type safety added, we are well on our way to understanding how to build a very solid component architecture driven Angular application.